Hello everybody, welcome to episode 17 of Setting the Scene. I'm your host David, and this is the board build for Death Guard Blood Angels, if I can remember correctly. It's being filmed tomorrow, which is a Saturday, and today's the Friday, so it's about 7 o'clock at night. Left it late again on this one, but you know, it's just the way it is, unfortunately. So this game is a Centurion game. There's a couple of jet bikes and a couple of dreadnoughts Contemptor class, but that's it. There's a lot of infantry. I think it's 2.5k, I think it is. And it's really interesting. I don't think we've seen Blood Angels versus Death Guard since Jack and Miles was on. I think it was over a year ago now, and that was one hell of a game. You know, it was set in the city with the staircases, and I think there was 7 staircases in total, with all led up to a building. So that was a really great game. So good to have Blood Angels and Death Guard on again, particularly Death Guard. You know, I am embarking on a Death Guard project myself, so that's pretty cool. And a couple of things that are new. I've fitted 2 new lights, which is unbelievable, and the lights make such a difference. So hopefully, particularly in the last game, there was a couple of dark spots, which wasn't cool, so I needed to get rid of those. So I think I've solved that issue now, so that's good news. And we've got some new rocks. I've been to the garden centre today and I've purchased 40 quid's worth of rock, which you see on the board in front of you. That's why I'm absolutely filthy, because I figure there's no point getting changed and then doing this video. So it's been a long day, but it's okay. And also as well, I mentioned in a couple of previous videos that I never had enough tiny slate chips, but I bought a massive bag of slate and I've spent a couple of hours. My girlfriend and I spent a couple of hours in the garden just washing all of the rock and sieving all of the slate into specific sizes and washing it. It's so dirty and horrible. So we spent a couple of hours doing that. But this is the fruits of our labour. We've got some new rocks, and I'm very, very specific in the choice of rocks that I got. I wanted them to be quite large but quite low and flat. And the reason why is the Games Workshop Realm Battle boards, I really love them, but I particularly love the hill sections in them because they are quite flat. But I like it because you can build, you know, if you put them together in certain orientation, you can build like a big, build like a big island almost, or a big hill section with them, or you can split them out, have one each corner, or a section coming out, section coming out. So I really like that, and I wasn't able to do that with the rocks that I have. So I bought a lot of low flat ones, so I can replicate that. But also as well, I had this board in mind, which I might change. I haven't quite decided yet. But what I wanted to do, because it's a Centurion game, I couldn't build a board where, like the last board, you know, Pride Rock, massive big rock in the middle. But if you're on this side, your enemy's on that side, to get round and you're walking would take 4 turns. If you've got a transport, that's different. You know, move 12 inches flat out, next turn move 12, third turn charge maybe. You know, it depends how aggressive you play. But I knew with a Centurion game, there's going to be a lot of walking, and there's no point putting stuff that's inaccessible. So the forces kind of need to get together. But there also needs to be a lot of cover as well. So to that end, I have this idea of perhaps building a manufactorum, power generator. I always call it a warehouse, but I think it's got another generator inside. But whatever, you know, kind of like industrial area in like a little depression surrounded by rocks. So maybe, you know, the forces could start on the rocks and then kind of descend into this small valley where all this kind of industrial plant is kept, and because of the nature of the 2 buildings, they are quite tall, so you can hide a Contemptor really easily. You can definitely hide a 10-man 20-man squad, which would be quite cool. But I'm having second thoughts. I just can't decide at the moment, so I think what I'll do is I'm going to blast through these setting the scene videos from now on, because I think it's just important that you just see the board build rather than me explain it all the time. I will explain really key points if I feel they're necessary, but I think a lot of the time you just perhaps want to see how it constructed, how it goes together. But in this one, I genuinely am unsure about how to build this board. I have put the boards at an angle rather than square, because everyone's boards everywhere in the world is square, and And for good reason, because you use a Realm of Battle or you use a mat and they're kind of squared out and they're not kind of built on an angle. So I always love to put an angle into things because it throws people off a little bit because they're so used to playing stuff on a square or grid system almost. So I do like the fact that they are on the board. But the only problem with them is that they're red and we've got Blood Angels. So I don't really want the red to bleed too much into the scenery. The off-white of the Death Guard is a totally different story. But we are going for a predominantly black board. We've got grey rock, and then they're going to use the black aggregate as well. If I don't use these pieces, what I might do is I might build almost like the Games Workshop Realm of Battle tiles where they have those kind of low flat hills, and I was going to build a few of those in just to get the players to move around them. But again, they haven't got any transports and I don't want to hamper their efforts, and I don't want to turn it into a point where it's just a shooting match. So if one force has got more shooting ability, then it will blow the other one off the board before they get to grips with them or get into a position to get their firepower down. So I need to have a really long, hard think about this. I might half build this board and change my mind, but we'll see what happens. I do like the idea of using these. I haven't used these for quite a while, and I will be covering up a large majority of the concrete, I guess, that these buildings are set on, because I need to raise the level of the aggregate to the height of the concrete. We'll see. I know I'm waffling. I'm so sorry. I'm going to stop it there. And I'll whiz through this as fast as I can, so hopefully you won't be too bored. But wish me luck. Right. It's a bit of a mess, I'm not going to lie. It looks absolutely terrible right now. It does just look like I've chucked a load of aggregate all over the place, and it does not look nice. As you saw as well, I put far too much on. I kind of want the outside area to be almost look like it's perhaps broken concrete. So I'm going to put a load of slate all the way around it, just so it's kind of, it feels like it's expanded a little bit more. I think in the absolute ideal world, all of these elements will be cut from the actual tile itself, and then you could build like a concrete floor out of foam core or blue foam, cut some big concrete blocks into it, and then arrange these on it rather than having to raise the level and then make it look like it's damaged around the outside. The problem is, these are, although I've done the generator before, these are really difficult to cut out and get level. They're a real pain. And now, of course, because Forge World have discontinued them, the last thing I want to do is start cutting tiles up. So you could perhaps argue it was something I should have done a long time ago, but it's a tricky one. I could try and scratch build one of these, but I know my ability will get nowhere near that. So it's a real tricky one, really. Yeah. Anyway, that's a completely different, off the subject, different thing to sort out. But it does look messy right now, no doubt, but I do like it. It is good. I want this place to feel abandoned. We are, of course, going to get some containers in there. Of course. They are my absolute favourite piece. And I am going to put the crane on there. I know I keep doing it, but it just looks really good. But I'm quite happy with how it's looking. I am just going to scoop out a little of this to kind of give the impression that perhaps this was a road in and, access to it. It would be better if there was road sections. I just don't have them. It's a bit tricky, but we're trying to make it look like it's abandoned, which I think is, unfortunately, this is the look that the channel goes for quite a lot, because there are not a lot of real complete buildings, apart from these ones, of course. But I guess the environment lends itself to a damaged, wrecked facility or a building or a city or a whatever. I would love to see some more complete buildings. both on the channel and released from Games Workshop. I know that their Games Workshop, their 40k terrain is really, really lovely, and I'll be honest with you, the case does build to start getting into a bit more of that. I've always criticised it in the past for having a bit too many skulls, but the new stuff's not too bad, and I think if you paint it a little bit more drably than perhaps the studio does, they're quite bright and in your face, and that fits the aesthetic of 40k absolutely perfectly. They're really lovely, well painted, and they are lovely models, but they just don't quite fit Heresy, in my opinion. You know, I'm sure there's tons of you out there with the stuff, and you know, good on you, but for me, it just doesn't quite match up. But I think maybe in the future we will perhaps move towards those because they are so versatile, and you can get some really lovely complete buildings. Anyway, waffling again. Need to get that under control. I think we're there, really. I think we've got enough of this. I'm going to now add some slate to kind of give that broken feeling and reinforce these grey rocks in the black aggregate. As you saw in the video there, I just kind of filled the edge along here just to get the height of it, and then I kind of just massaged all of this rock and rubble into place. I'm thinking, despite having loads more of this, probably 5 times more than I had, I'd still love a load more just to get that extra texture in there, but you know, it's okay. So we're gonna add the crane because it's just such an awesome piece, and I got yellow, so I've got red and yellow. There's no green and coming on the board, so the yellow works quite well, and we're just going to use these to reinforce the cover as well, because I don't want stuff just shooting through each other. I think with this board, they've got to work a little bit, but at least the terrain is a little bit more accessible. I think sometimes when the rocks go in, players see them as a complete barrier and don't even bother, which is kind of what I want, because I want to force them to do something a little bit different and play on a board they're not used to. So I do like the fact that it does force them, but I think in this game we need that movement to get the units in place, and I think the game will offer that. The board will offer that, rather. I love these crates, you all know that. It is missing something. I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm going to have a look at my scenery and see what it needs. Phew. After a lot of looking for stuff that wasn't there and a lot of head scratching, I think the board needs a little bit more interest, and so I've kind of made these silos. It looks like R2-D2, to be fair, but I really like these, and I want to get some height into the board, so probably just going to pop that there. I know it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and I know I always preach on about how I want the boards to make sense, but sometimes you just got to go with it. But I do really like them. It kind of tells me that this kind of area is a bit important. And then I really love these bunkers. They are so good. And I do want to dot a couple of these around. Quite fancy one there, maybe. Need to get the lids on right, that might help. Oh, that's a lot harder than it actually seems. Come on. Clearly struggling with that. Okay, yeah, I think we've got him. I'm gonna have one over here. I think that would work. and then maybe one down the front, right in front where you guys are. See if we can't mess this one up again. What? Aha, we got it. That nice reassuring click when stuff goes together. So we'll obviously put the door facing inwards rather than outwards, because that wouldn't make any sense. That is it. I think from something I thought was an absolute mess in the beginning has actually turned into something I really like. I think the star of the show is this slate pieces, because I think without them you just have red, black, grey, and I think it just looks so boring. But it's that interest of the little slate that makes. I think it makes the board, if I'm honest with you. I do really like these, actually. I think I'm going to try and get hold of a few more. Well, we always know I need dome tops, but I really like them. They look quite chunky. I'd love to have like 5 or 6 of them in like an industrial area, kind of almost like a bit of impenetrable terrain that just kind of juts out onto the board and it makes you go round, or if you're a land speeder, fly over, or a Xiphon or whatever you've got. Quite like those. I might try and acquire a few more of those. You know, I've got a broken one of these and I've just set upside down, same on the other side. It looks awesome. It looks like it's just buried in deep. I really like this board. I'm really, really pleased with it. I hope you do too. I think it's going to look really great with the Blood Angels and the Death Guard fighting it over it tomorrow. There are a ton of infantry in the list. I think probably between them there's probably about 80 infantry, a couple of Contemptors and a couple of land speeders. So that's going to be really awesome, right? I will take a load of photos. I will put them at the end of this video. So if you want to stay tuned for those, please hold on. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Or if you want to ask me directly, it's david@the30kchannel.com. On Instagram, of course, just @the30kchannel. Again, thank you for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.